three things. It was first my grandfather.
Hmm.
It was second that I found myself intimately related to the Constitution. It would
Mm-hmm.
awaken my senses actually if I
Right.
when I was in school.
Hmm.
And the third is the independence that this profession guarantees to a professional. There is no other profession, I believe, where free speech is such a privilege as this profession. So these are the three things which really inspired me to join law. Otherwise, I really aim to be in army actually, but I
That's
got
news.
myself into law, so that's what it is.
Right. That's amazing. And how's your journey been so far?
It's been very good. I've spent substantial time at the bar, but what I feel is that there's been hardly any time which I've spent at the bar.
Right, right, right. I
Time
think,
has been so quick, and
mhm,
every day feels like a debut at the court.
yeah,
You feel you have the same anxiety when
mhm,
appearing. What will happen? How will the
mhm,
judge perceive me?
yeah,
Will I be able to answer his questions? What if I
right,
lose? What will
right,
happen to my client? All those
yeah,
anxieties keep pouring in.
right,
So
right.
you learn to deal with them, you learn to grow with them,
I'm
you learn
sure.
to enjoy the daily ledger of life. That is
Right.
what law is all about, I feel.
Pretty true. And all the students out there, if you see the background, you have all the books that's I'm believing just the 50% of books. So please ensure if you're coming in this profession, ready to become a student because you have to keep researching and reading all the time. Correct me if I am wrong.
No, not really.
Right, right.
Hard work is
Okay.
immense.
Oh, all right. Okay, so Mr. Arora, what do you have to say about this?
Hi, firstly, thank you so much for the sweet introduction you gave in the beginning, and
Thank
thank you
you.
so
Yeah.
much, Mr. Sai, for portraying me as something very big. I'm very, very small person in front of you, and just very young into the profession. Um, my journey has been. It started like what got me into law was in my class 12th, I got to know about this CLAT and common law exam happening, which was pacing up by then. So it was 2011 and it was
Yeah.
still pacing up. My aim was to become a CA, chartered accountant, and not a lawyer. However, the idea of CLAT and a common test and a 5 year law attracted me a lot. It gave us brought a certainty in me that in a 5 years I'll be a graduate and I'll be profession ready. Uh, However, I gave both the entrance exams for CA as well as law and cleared both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was a well-researched choice. The idea of corporate laws interested me since 2011 because the daily quotes etc. wasn't much of attraction to me. I'm sure it's too many because it involves a lot of thrill, but the idea of corporate law and a good desk job attracted me a lot, and that's how I chose law school over CA, and
That's amazing.
it
Hmm.
has been really wonderful so far. My law school was amazing, very nice, and very supportive. Throughout my law school, I've strategized my career path, and which helped me in
That's
securing a
amazing.
job at a good law.
That's amazing. And one thing that I liked about the both of you that somewhere deep down, you two were sort of clear about the fact that you wanted to pursue law. And I know a lot of students who don't realize it in the beginning, and it gets difficult for us to sort of go back to that path. So that's one thing that while you are in 11th and 12th standard, you should be a little aware about the fact that if you are going towards law as a profession, if you wish to pursue law as a career, you should be doing a BLB, BBLLB, or any such related course. Mr. Sahay, please break down the meaning of litigation for all of us. Like we keep listening about litigation. You just mentioned that you like about the bar bit. So a lot of symbiosis and amity students are there, and I'm sure they're you know the whole thing is going in a different direction for them. So could you please break it down for all of us? What litigation exactly looks like? How things are? How do you get there?
If you have to consider litigation, first
Mm-hmm.
you know what is law.
Right.
Because, as you mentioned about the career choice which everyone faces during when you are in school, you have to think about which career should I choose, what career is
True.
best suited, where if I
True.
fare well, etc.
True.
You know that predicament is natural
Mm-hmm.
because the
Very true.
future is not known. So when you are at that juncture, well, class 11, probably in our times now, the education has changed a lot. When we used to choose streams in what should we choose, humanities will give us what should we choose, science will give us what. Then
Mm.
humanities in my school, I read at Lamatnia College, Lucknow. So humanities in our school was considered to be the last option,
Mm.
and people were looked down as if they were untouchables.
Unfortunately enough. Mm.
But I believe humanities would have been a great foundation for law and is a great foundation for law
Indeed. Indeed.
because you've read history, you've read philosophy, you've
Mm.
read so many subjects that in turn, when you come forward to deal with law, to appreciate law, perhaps there is already a foundation there, which
Mm.
perhaps you can easily. But then
Mm.
there are few people like me who thought science is a status symbol, so choose science.
Yeah.
Even though chemistry was out of the box for me, still,
Mm.
but
Mm.
whatever it may happen, I passed.
Yeah.
And the careers you have today, they are so vivid because if you consider it in the past, like during our parents' time, medicine, you call civil services, engineering, law, these were the traditional and conventional professions. Today, when you log into a university's website, perhaps 106 courses you will find which anyone can opt for. The
Right.
choices are so numerous. And
Exactly.
one of the reasons is that the talent has specialized so much.
Right. Perhaps the confusion.
Perhaps the confusion
Mm.
that
Mm.
where actually you should find yourself so
True.
that you can best utilize yourself and
Mm.
come out with a career for yourself where
Mm.
you can excel.
Right.
And one thing where it is your confidence. It is your confidence and the trust in yourself which actually helps you come to this decision that,
Mm.
okay, this is the career which I feel I will work hard, I
Right.
will deliver it to me.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So, coming
Mm.
back, in today's world where we have variety of career options,
Mm.
you have so many computer engineers, software engineers, you have people specializing more in artificial intelligence,
Right.
coming up
Right.
with breathtaking
Mm.
technologies.
Mm.
So, in light of that, if we consider law,
Mm.
I would be slightly biased and advocating law to say that law here takes an edge because if you are developing an artificial intelligence product, you are
Mm.
bound to be regulated by law.
Yeah. Mm. Mm. Mm.
You're bound to be regulated by law. For example, you consider that case of those that dolphin game, blue whale, which came,
Yes.
which had to be blocked because it had adverse
Right.
effects on humans.
Right. Mm.
So the game was creative. It was a manifestation of creativity and innovativeness, but ultimately the law had to come and regulate that and stop that because life of everyone was affected.
Exactly. Mm.
And you take today's example, I think the best one, COVID. We are
Right.
all here confined to our rooms and our
Mm.
houses because the law has come to our safety to protect our lives.
Mm.
And that is how we are here. So
Right.
that is the perspective.
Mm.
Law is all about rights and duties. It gives you a system to regulate those rights and duties. So
Mm.
whether you are a politician or say you are government, what are you doing? You are regulating those rights and duties of your citizens. If you are in a company and you are regulating the rights and duties of the company you are representing. If you are, say, in a firm, you are representing the rights and duties of your clients in a way. So that system of law, that system that law gives you, is actually where you must analyze yourself how far you are enthusiastic about that system. Because everything in law, it is nothing but rights and duties.
Right.
So that goes about it.
Right.
Litigation
Hmm.
is a manifested form of that.
Right.
When disputes occur, you
Hmm.
find faith in the Constitution, you find faith in the system established by the Constitution of India. You come to courts. You go to specialized authorities or bodies that decide specialized disputes, and you go to those tribunals which have been created.
Right.
So you have people like you have Gurcaran, for example. He
Hmm.
will deal with all corporate disputes. He will deal with regulatories in with which any client of his or a company of his is required to comply with. You have
Hmm.
10 employees. You will have to give PF. You would have to give gratuity,
Hmm.
etc. So litigation is about advocating, coming forward, advising your clients as to where do they stand with respect to a dispute,
Hmm.
understanding their problems, coming up with a solution, and
Hmm.
trying yourself in court whether you can get them justice. That is
Right.
what litigation is all about.
Makes sense. But Mr. Sahay, like all of us have just seen that side of litigation in movies, I'm believing. And now a lot of us in Suits, like people who are watching Suits would
Harvey
come to
Specter's
me. Yeah, I was in fact, while putting on the music, I was looking at his list of music. So anyway, people would come to me and tell me, ma'am, I want to become a lawyer. Why would you want to become a lawyer? Because it looks so fancy in Suits. Right? So a lot of people out there have no idea about how the real picture is inside. So could you give us a little insight into how exactly things work in the court? How things actually are? Are they even slightly closer to what it appears to be in the movies or in the TV shows,
no,
especially in the
certainly not.
movies? Yeah,
It is
so I
not
would
movie
give
like.
that insight to the students a bit more.
It is not movie likes, but
Mm.
there is a lot of theatrics involved
Yeah, I'm sure. Mm.
because ultimately, no
Mm.
matter how much you consider, but judges are
Mm.
humans, and with
Mm.
all humans, they have their frailties. They have
Totally.
compassion, they have
Mm.
emotion. To
Right.
detach that is not really possible.
Right.
So, in order to give them perspective, you have to
Mm.
come up with, for example, I saw a question which you sent me that how
Mm.
psychology can help.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of students ask
Psychology
that.
exactly helps here.
Mm.
So
Mm.
you have read psychology, you
Mm.
understand what a human is thinking,
Right.
what a judge is thinking, what you are able to read from him, and you
Mm.
can accordingly, uh, you know, convince him with your perspective and win an argument.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So normal
Right.
role, a normal life of ours is that a client comes to you, he comes with a problem, you think
Mm.
about the problem, you research about the problem, you come up with a possible solution which you perceive. That solution might be backed by law, that solution may not be backed by law.
Right. Exactly.
When it is not backed by law, the situation is all the more challenging. So you
Mm.
have to find concepts with which you can back that. And I
Right.
will give you an example.
Mm.
When that first fundamental rights case happened, Keshwan and
Mm.
Bharti, if law students and students generally might have read,
Yeah.
Mr. Palkiwala appeared and before the court, before 13 judges of the Supreme Court, and all that he had was an article written in 1965 talking about that there are few rights or there are certain aspects of any constitution
Hmm.
that cannot be amended by the government of the day.
Right, right.
There was only one article, and he argued on the basis of that. And of course, his industry, his research, he backed it by other logical arguments, which he developed. But that was the concept which touched, and today is the law. There are certain your rights such as free
Hmm.
speech, your liberty, that
Hmm.
cannot be that cannot be dropped by the government of the day. They
Yeah.
stand protected, they stand guaranteed by the constitution.
Hmm.
That is
Hmm.
the innovativeness we have. That is the challenge we have. That is the
Hmm.
thrill we have. You imagine. You have
Hmm.
you imagine a situation where you have nothing with you. You come up with an argument. That argument comes to be accepted by the court. There is no greater happiness in life than that moment. If anybody
Exactly.
could have watched that movie, The Art of Happiness, in the
Hmm.
end, when Will Smith emerges with this,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
A
that's the
beautiful
expression
movie.
it
That's a
conveys.
beautiful movie. Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
So that's how litigation is.
Right, right. Makes sense. And what is your take on this? How is your profession working? What exactly do you do, Mr. Ro? Like, could you give us a bit of insight on corporate law? What does this mean? How does practice even look like? At least in movies, we have a bit insight. Let's say 5% of insight how things are working in litigation, but then we barely know about corporate law. So, what's your idea on that?
Okay,
Yeah.
so coming to corporate law, so firstly, very well explained, Mr. Sai. That gives me a base to start, also a benchmark.
Hmm.
So what my work is, it is basically a preparedness for Mr. Sai's work. So
Okay.
basically, we come before in the picture, and Mr. Sai come later. Mr. Sai comes when a dispute occurs.
Okay. Also, just break it down a little more because we have both university students and college students and professionals as well. So try and just break it down a little more for them.
Sure, sure. I'll
Okay.
just do that. As a
Yeah.
corporate lawyer, what we majorly deals is
Hmm.
transactions. What
Right.
do we mean by transactions? They
Hmm.
mean deals. What
Hmm.
are deals? Deals,
Hmm.
what you see in newspaper daily, Facebook bought Reliance, a share in Reliance Jio.
Hmm.
Silver private equity firm made a investment in Reliance Jio. There are mergers happening, acquisitions happening. All
Hmm.
these involves a lot of legal paperwork,
Hmm.
a lot of negotiations. So
Hmm.
all this happens via a contract, through by way of a contract. So in
Hmm.
case there somebody has done an investment in Geo, that has happened by way of an agreement. That
Hmm.
agreement is highly negotiated between the lawyers of both the parties. They
Hmm.
sit on the other side of the opposite sides of the table and negotiate it and finally come into a contract. And this
Hmm.
includes negotiations on each and every word of the contract. So
Hmm.
that is one of the roles we play.
Right.
The, yeah. Secondly, apart from transactional work, we also do advisory work. Advisory in relation to so in these times we have a lot of regulations. So for a layman, it's not at all possible to keep a track of each and every regulation. There are
Hmm.
regulations for foreign investments, for employment, for real estates, for various. Now there are various specialities. So
Hmm.
we also take care of the regulatory. By regulatory, I mean complying with all the laws. Let's say for a private limited company, you have to make regular filings, you have to maintain registers, you have to do minutes. For say employment, as Mr. Sai mentioned, in case you have more than 10 employees, then you have provident fund obligations, you have ESI obligations, etc. For let's say for some electricity company, there is the electricity body for which whose regulations you will have to comply with. So we
Hmm.
take care of all that compliances, and yeah, and advisory in the and when the client comes, when they have doubts and queries in relation to interpreting these laws and compliances, then we issue them opinions, written opinions as well as verbal opinion.
Right.
So
Makes sense.
yeah, these are major three
Hmm.
buckets where my area of work involves.
Right. Right. Uh, okay, so could you both? I think that's really nicely explained, both of you. I think a lot of students finally sort of understand how litigation, corporate law really works. So now this next question for both of you, could you tell us about more trending fields in the career in law? Like if not just litigation, if not just corporate law, let's say I've also heard a lot about IPR, but I'm not really aware as to what IPR person would do. So could you give us a few ideas as to where all we can go if we go ahead with a course in law?
See, IPR has three
Mm-hmm.
fields,
Mm-hmm.
subfields. You have trademark, you have
Mm-hmm.
copyrights, and you have patents. You can be a you can be a patent attorney. Their work is to file patents. Their work is to get patents. What are patents? First, patents are you understand you've developed something. Now you've developed a medicine, for example. You've developed a medicine which requires to be on which you claim to have your exclusive rights.
Right.
And anybody who wants to use that medicine will have to buy that medicine from you or that right from you. So
Mm-hmm.
patent is a security to you. For example, we have land, we have our house, it is our property. Similarly, our invention is our property.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have patents, you have either you can be a patent attorney, or of course you can specialize in disputes which arise in respect of these intellectual properties, where competing companies do grab those, try to grab those, or come out with copy versions of these rights.
Right.
Copyright is on something. Is say you compose the song,
Mm-hmm.
you will have a copyright. So many
Mm-hmm.
movies you hear that our Bollywood movies that they are such and such copy, they are such and such copy. Those fall within the ambit of copyright.
Mm-hmm.
Trademark is the symbol of your business or your business name.
Mm-hmm.
That is trademark.
Right.
Trademark disputes are usually in courts where, and there are, you know, uh, some very clear violations would be
Mm.
the Sitaram Sweets, new
Yeah, yeah.
original the Sitaram Sweets.
Mm.
That would be a trademark violation.
Right.
Persons, and what I'll say, trademark and copyright, any
Mm.
person who wants to specialize in this field, if he has command over English language, perhaps he's the best suited for that. Because all is there on the key lies in interpretation of
Mm.
the words. If it
Mm.
is a general word, there
Mm.
cannot be any trademark. So I cannot have a trademark, say, price law firm.
Right, right.
Price, law, firm, all three things are generic words. There cannot be a
Mm.
trademark on this.
Mm. Mm.
So a person who wants to specialize in these two can, of course, try out for must have if he has a command over language, perhaps he's quite well to do with these two fields. Patent requires a command over science also, because more or less these are chemical components, etc., of various research that come up.
Right.
They do involve science. So if you are a BSc LLB, perhaps you're more suited for that.
Mm-hmm.
That
Makes
is
sense.
what I
Yeah.
understand of IPR.
Yeah. Even for that matter, all of you should be noting the fact that IIT Kharagpur has come up
Many
with,
engineering colleges do offer.
yeah,
IIT
yeah,
Kharagpur
yeah.
is one
Yeah.
of them.
Mm-hmm. And they are providing with LLM course majorly in the especially IPR specialization, and they're doing very well in that bit.
Wait for 10 years, law would surpass engineering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. And
So I
Mr.
have something to
Yeah.
add there. Apart from
Yes. Yeah.
IPR, there are a
Also, if you
lot
could
of
add a lot of other trending fields, especially.
yeah. So there are a lot of
Mm,
fields. The law is
mm,
not just very limited to now general corporate and disputes. There are, as
exactly.
we mentioned, employment-related laws, attorneys who deal with employment-related, as in dealing with the human resource you have. Then there are the specialization has come to real estate laws, dealing with all the real estate. Then we have now there's something called private client practice. What is that? Basically, so let's say we as a general corporate lawyers are taking care of Geo, but who's taking care of Ambani's wealth, personal wealth himself? So they deal with private client. They deal with succession of Ambani's money to his sons, etc. And so they deal with a lot of wealthy people for their personal assets and not their company's assets. Then we
Right.
have a very emerging field in India. It's called white collar crime, which is coming up due to the frauds coming into the corporate
Yeah.
industry. It's worldwide has emerged, and it is as big as general corporate in the world throughout now. In India, it's still emerging, and I'm sure it's going to take over in few years. Then
That
we have
sounds very interesting. Is there any
It has
example
already,
of, yeah?
sorry.
it has already taken over. You have Serious Fraud Investigation Office of Ministry of Corporate Affairs. They
Yeah.
do all kinds of these investigations, and
Okay.
they come up with huge prosecutions where they accuse, say, 175, 190 people, and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah,
So
Mr.
if
Sai,
I'm not wrong,
in India, so issues worldwide it's taken care by law firms, but India it's started to be taken care of Big Four initially. Law firms have evolved their
okay.
practice, however, majorly it's with Big Fours where usually MBAs or accountants are. That's why for lawyers, I'm saying in law firms the practices still evolve, as in very small in comparison to say a GC practice.
So if you could, if you're talking about white collar law, is it something like what happened with the two banks lately, like the whole bankruptcy that happened, the Vijay Mallya case? Is it more revolving around that, if I may ask?
Yeah.
These are all offshoots.
Okay.
So what happened is that
Yeah.
you have a company, okay,
Hmm.
and say whether a company or an organization,
Hmm.
that company dooms and goes into gets bankrupt.
Hmm.
So, of course, when a company goes bankrupt, who suffers first? The banks who have uh,
Right.
who have given loans. If
Especially the
banks
two banks
suffer,
in
the
India that
economy
was hyped. Hmm.
yes.
Hmm.
Then who else suffer? Persons who have been played a fraud, who have
Hmm.
played fraud, who have abused their position in the company. Because
Hmm.
there are two ways by which a company may be doomed. One is that perhaps there is a business failure where the model of the company did not work out. So that is a
Right.
pure case where it might not involve any crime as such.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
Hmm.
then there is a case where the management itself has caused it to, uh, you know,
Hmm.
uh, go bankrupt. So that is
Hmm.
a case
Hmm.
of oppression and mismanagement
Right.
by the management itself. Here,
Hmm.
the law safeguards or law comes up to the rescue, and
Hmm.
there are audits directed, there are investigations directed, there are CBI investigations, there are
Hmm.
investigations by income tax authorities, there are investigations by uh, serious fraud investigation office. All these come up and they charge A crime, B crime, C crime, D crime, and then you have host of offenses which are slapped against them. You have
Right.
audit reports which are slapped against them. That this is
Hmm.
pointing out this is the management, that this is the mismanagement, that is the mismanagement. So then the company is prosecuted. So here we have one emerging field as insolvency and bankruptcy code, where
Hmm. Hmm.
you first consider whether this company can be uh, resolved or can be brought back into the economic system.
Right.
If it cannot be brought into the economic system, it is thought, okay, then we must sell the assets of the company. That process is known as liquidation.
Hmm. Right. Hmm. Hmm.
If that also does not solve, then the company is dissolved. Company is ultimately dissolved after liquidation.
Right.
Yeah.
Similarly, and simultaneously, prosecutions go against the individuals who are responsible for this, for the death of the company.
Hmm. Hmm.
That is how everything works together.
Right.
And
Right.
while I'm telling these organizations,
Hmm.
all these organizations have law officers as their advisors. So you have all careers open to enter income
Yeah.
tax, to enter banks, to enter
Mm.
serious fraud investigation office, to enter income
Mm.
tax.
Yeah.
There are variety
Unlimited.
of options today. You are not
Mm. Right.
That's
restricted
the
to being a lawyer or a corporate lawyer.
yeah.
You are not
Yeah.
restricted to being in a law firm or a counsel practice. You have host.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
can enter legal journalism, which is perhaps the most the recent trending field right now. LiveLaw.com is the best example.
Mm.
BarAndBench.com is the best example.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
They are sought after people these days. Even lawyers run behind them.
Right. Makes sense. That's a really nice insight. Like a lot of us would just end up thinking that law is only restricted to these areas. But I'm sure like even how AI data management has come up, even in data management, a lot of areas where law is coming in because data is a very crucial thing in itself. Similarly, as you mentioned, IPR, you mentioned a white collar law. So all of these things are very interesting to know, and I think all of the students should be knowing about all of these areas, be it you're in a university level, be it you are in a school level, or even if you're professional, so that what is it that you can venture for, because it's not just one simple thing, it's not just this much, it's huge.
Yeah.
And that takes me to another question. If a student in school, if a student is in school, what stream can he or she take in order to pursue a course in law? I believe that you mentioned that in the beginning, but still, Mr. Arora, what do you think that I believe they can take all the three streams, but what do you think will be the most beneficial one?
It totally it kind of depends upon the objective they have. Like Mr. Sai
Hmm.
mentioned, if somebody wants to venture into IPR and especially patents, it makes a lot of sense, and rather it makes a lot of sense for them to have go for the science stream, because
Hmm.
knowledge of that would be almost an essential. Because as a commerce person, when I try to understand patents, it becomes a little difficult for me because it
Okay.
involves a lot of design structures, etc.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
I was in commerce, and I am. So it thinks if I think if somebody wants to go into corporate law, commerce gives an edge. So I'm not saying something is essential or something, but it gives an edge over the other. So for corporate laws, I think commerce gave me an edge because on a day-to-day basis, we need to read some commercials of the company, understand the commercials of the companies, be say their accounts or
Hmm.
their business or their functioning of the company. So the study of accounts and business studies, etc., helps me there to understand them better.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Right.
However, humanities would come into picture. Let's say, I think in if going for litigation, because subjects like psychology would help there, and I would now
Hmm.
request Mr. Sai to add that because he would give more insight on humanity. He would be able to give more
Certainly.
insight there on
Yeah.
humanities.
Now, Gurcaran, you
Hmm.
rightly mentioned because your object will define what will
That's
be
true.
more helpful. But
Hmm.
uh, for example, commerce I find really helpful when dealing with banks
Hmm.
because there is a lot of banks as also companies. Because when you're dealing with matters of insolvency and bankruptcy code, or you're dealing with matters of Companies Act, or you're dealing with such commercial matters, then a basic knowledge or a knowledge of accounting that really helps in understanding those balance sheets and appreciating the infirmities in those or finding out loopholes in those.
Right.
Humanities is in the context not only of litigation, because litigation, all three would be there, whether you take science, whether you take commerce, whether you take humanities, because, well, if you're in Supreme Court, everything converges. All appeals ultimately end at Supreme Court. Wherever dispute starts, it ultimately ends at Supreme Court. Secondly, all advocates, all lawyers do not practice at Supreme Court. There are many lawyers these days who do not even practice before high courts. They practice at specialized tribunals, where
Hmm.
and they remain confined to those tribunals because they find themselves an expert of that. For example, competition law. Uh, People who are in competition law they remain confined to Competition Commission of India. They only come to National Company Law Appellate Tribunal or in cases where, in very rare cases, when these matters land before the High Courts or the Supreme Court, then they do come. This said, these streams would not limit yourself. For example, if you take science or you take science, perhaps is important if you want to opt for BSc LLB.
That's very true.
If you want to opt for BSc LLB, and I tell you, BSc LLB is far more scoring than BA LLB.
Oh, is it?
But their GPA is far more than BA LLBs.
Okay.
So, but you can always learn during your practice times. You learn a lot during your practice times. And whatever you've not learned in classes 11th and 12th is not going to hamper your career.
Any day.
So whatever you are comfortable with, any stream, you can go with it. But ultimately, the nature of dispute you wish to handle, that will train you. That will definitely train you.
Right. So, Mr. Sahay, what do you think? What are your suggestions and tips for the college students? What is being taught in the 5 years degree? Does that really suffice, or is that enough? Do you think there's need of extra knowledge, extra profile building? What do you think about that bit? Like I go to a 5 years degree and I'm done. So should it be like that?
If you want me to be really candid,
No.
school is nothing.
Yeah.
So far as, and the reason is this, that in those 5 years or 3 years, because there are people who make up their mind to pursue law after they have done their BA or BSc or BBA or BCom in a regular university like Delhi University. So after they have, when you come with this thing, they have a limitation in university, because the course that is designed from more or less these days from a placement point of view, where they are not able to give you that perspective, that practical perspective, which perhaps might be helpful for you while in actual practice. So it is actually when you join a chamber or you join a particular organization or you actually join a field that you come up with this thing. You actually learn. So law school's education is a bird's eye view, or shall I say an overview, of the actual education that is to follow in the real world.
That's true. Very true. And I think in any profession, yes,
and you must not be contented by law school's education. Definitely not.
Yeah.
Because law school is only giving you a brief introduction about the perspectives of law, so that along with their curriculum, so that you can really find yourself choosing which way do you wish to proceed further. It is the organization which you join thereafter actually shapes you up. Where do you actually head to?
Right.
At least that is what I understand.
And that's where in law school the internships come in help. They give a bit of trailer to you of the real movie which is to upcome. So I think internships would be a lot of important along with law school. So law school itself wouldn't suffice.
Right. I think in any case, in any profession for that matter, what you are just learning in the degree, whatever there is just in the theory, be it a 3 year degree, 5 year degree, irrespective, you should be going for internships, you should be doing extra certificate courses, because unless you see what is really going in the industry, you don't really get how things work. It gets very difficult for you to connect what's there in academics and what's there practically. So certainly internships is very important. In fact, one of the students asked if either of you two are offering internships. So like if you could give that view, if Mr. Arora, like in your company, and Mr. Sahay, what about you? Can students come to you and have an internship done if it's there?
Well, anyone excited is always welcome.
Yeah, good. Okay. So people, you can certainly reach out to him via LinkedIn. And what about you, Mr. Arora? What's the company seeing that in that bit?
For me, you have to understand. I work for a firm. You will have to route it through HR. I have my the scope has limitations. So yeah,
Okay,
you'll
I
have to
mean,
route
that's
it through
definitely
HR.
understandable. But are they anyway there? Like, are they available?
The H, you mean
Internships bit?
yeah, internships are yeah, internships are always available.
Okay.
You'll have to
Okay.
route it through HR.
Sure, sure, sure. All right. So now this
Actually, what
very
the internship procedure is, sorry, Bhumika, I'm interrupting.
yes, no problem, no
In
problem.
firms, usually the procedure is that they have their websites, you apply through
Mm,
that, and there are in your law schools, you must be having alumni. Those alumni can really help you out connect
mm.
because recommendations do matter. There are law
Mm.
students who don't take work seriously, and that is why every law student is perhaps you find law firms and every organization filtering. So recommendation steps in, and alumni are the best people who help out in such circumstances.
Mm, mm, mm. Makes sense, makes sense. And I think also your networking, how you reach out, also makes a lot of
It
difference.
makes a
So
lot of difference. Of course,
yeah,
it does.
yeah, it
It
does,
Yes.
has
it
to.
does. Yeah. So one very important question coming your way, and what are some specific personality type or skill sets required in this profession?
I think you should go ahead.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
Telling
And
from
very genuine
yeah,
experience.
very
Yeah.
genuine experiences.
Mm.
Telling from I'll just go one by one. The first most I'll put in diligence. You have to
Okay.
be diligent. At least in my firm, the firm where I work, there is no scope for mistake. People get fired on one single small mistake. You get
So I forgive
demeaned.
you.
You get
Mm.
demeaned if you haven't put a comma there in the sentence. So
Mm.
yeah, very very diligent. And second, for corporate or litigation or anything, I believe law is a field of hard work. So, there's a word going around, be a smart worker, don't be a hard worker. I didn't think so that works in, law. You have to be a hard worker. There is no other option. If you're a smart worker above that, wonderful. But nothing beats hard work here. So, hard work has to be
Mm.
there. And confident and good speaker are some traits which will add cream to it. However, I would the most essential ones would be diligence and hard work.
I totally agree with that. In fact, I myself have seen this. So while I was in Delhi for 2 years, I remember having approximately 7 to 8 friends who were from law background, and they had no routine whatsoever in terms of that they were working till 3, 4 in the night. They were still waking up, at 7 in the morning. They was and अभी भी मैं थोड़ा ज़्यादा time slot बता रही हूँ. At times they could not even come back home. So I've seen them slogging day in, day out, and that's one very important thing, especially in a profession like law, that you need to know when do you need to step out of that comfort zone. Initially, especially, I believe that's very important. Mrs. I, what's your take on that? What do you think certain set of skills and certain personality type, what are certain those things which are important?
I believe uh, your aim should be nothing short of perfection. That is the
Mm-hmm.
quality of work and dedication you should long for.
Right.
Because the difference is that here you are representing not yourself, but somebody else. And that
Exactly.
somebody else is dependent on you for justice.
Right.
Your delivery, or if you are not delivering, whatever role you are playing, whether as a preparing counsel or uh, you know briefing counsel, you should be ready with everything beforehand, having anticipated or attempt to anticipate it genuinely. Your preparation should match to those anticipations.
Very true. Very
So
true.
the personality is that you must have that confidence to
Mm-hmm.
learn, to deliver. You must
Right.
have that patience to wait.
Mm. Mm.
You
Very
must
true.
have the patience to learn, because
Mm.
if you are a person who would like to rush perhaps you might like to reconsider law because
Definitely.
so far as counsel practice goes, and even apart from counsel practice, even otherwise, there cannot be any rush so far as this profession is concerned.
Very
You
true.
have to develop patience. You have to develop that skill to withstand pressure because there are complicated matters sometimes. Those matters are very challenging matters. When they are listed in court, it may happen that you've spent weeks or days or sleepless nights.
Very much,
And
yeah.
on the morning, at the morning of the hearing, you might be totally tired, but that all that energy loss in preparation is only up to you. It should not reflect yourself to the court.
Right,
Because
right,
with court, you have to be fresh. With court, you have to be prepared
exactly.
to anticipate questions, prepared, having anticipated questions, and prepared to answer those questions, and also prepared to answer those questions which you don't know in such a way that perhaps that's the art of advocacy.
Very, very important to know that. And also, now that we are already talking about this bit, even though that was the last question, but still I would take it up. How is the monetization journey working? Because you are definitely putting in that amount of effort. So, how does the monetization bit works? Do you think that the patience is also required over there, or is it just like as instant as it is for maybe a BBA student or for an
I'm
MBA? So,
sorry
how do these things work?
if you
Very again a very authentic perspective on that.
see. I have never weighed monetization or money because the day I would, probably I would not be able to survive because so many years that I've spent at the bar, what I felt the most is that I never compare myself with peers as to how much they are earning, and I never think that how much I am earning. I concentrate on work and concentrate on the quality of work which I should get because time passes by and ultimately you do earn. There is no problem. But
Okay,
your
okay.
challenge is not to earn. Your challenge is to get work.
Right,
Your
right.
challenge is to first find work. Your challenge is to find a
Exactly.
mentor. Mentor, I tell you, is the basic challenge that you have. A lot of genuine talent is lost because they are not able to find a mentor who can really help them, who can really guide them in their initial years. Because many senior advocates interviews, everyone can watch, everything is available on YouTube. They will all tell that what did we do in our earliest times, where we sat in the bar library, we sat in the high court library, we kept on reading, we kept on reading, we kept on reading. One fine day, somebody came up and gave us a brief, and then that was the break. And then also we
Exactly.
had to teach, we had to take part-time courses at government law college, or we had to
Right.
take part-time courses at Calcutta University. So that's how people have tried to balance their need with their work, because
Right.
work is foremost. You will, or suppose you rely on that. What ultimately happens in you is that it comes as a dagger on your confidence. You feel that, oh, I'm not sufficiently earning. Had I joined a law firm, perhaps I would have been better. Had I joined that law firm, perhaps I would have been better. My master over here is not good. Perhaps the resolve should be on yourself
Exactly. Totally.
because you are the key. So
Right,
if you
right,
think
right.
about monetization, I really don't think that you can help out. But that is an ideal perspective. Your income security is necessary, but it comes.
Exactly. It
Trust me,
comes.
from
Okay.
where it comes, I
Yeah.
can't tell you, but it comes.
Right. Right. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of
Because
people out there do feel.
you have to
Yeah.
leave certain things for fortune. It comes. It comes automatically. I can say so with my experience.
That's important. That's important. So what I've heard again from those friends is that initially it's always an issue initially,
It has to
but
be.
gradually you certainly make a mark in the field.
Exactly.
That
There you have.
right, right. And
It
what
has to
about
be
you?
initially because
Yeah.
you are looking forward for work. You are looking
Mm,
forward for mentorship. You're not
mm.
looking forward for income security. For
That's
that,
a
you
very
might
nice
have your
purpose.
parents to rely
Yeah,
upon. Or if
yeah.
you don't have your parents to rely upon, you might teach at a law school. You might take part-time teaching
Work.
jobs.
Mm.
You might
Okay.
do some other things. But
Mm-hmm.
certainly this thing. Because for me
Yeah.
personally, when I started off, I think
Mm,
for 1.5 years, I
mm,
did not get a single penny. That was
mm.
zero, big zero. But it came
Yeah,
later on.
yeah, yeah. Which in fact has a very again a very important question. Before that, Mr. Arora, what's your take on this? Like in corporate law, especially, I've heard that it's crazy money. You get big fat checks. How true is that?
Uh,
Initially as well,
Firstly, I would like to say wonderfully put by Mr. Sahay. I
definitely. Any day.
totally
Hmm.
agree with his view. That's how a view should be.
Hmm.
For corporate, yes, it is lucrative initially. They offer you good paychecks, but I should tell beforehand everyone, it's a hard nut to crack. It's not easy to crack a law firm being a fresher. There are hardly 6 to 7 top tier law firms which gives good paycheck, and they hire what, say, 50 per law firm per year. So
Hmm.
there are hardly 300 to 400 seats, you can put it that way, and there are so many law schools nowadays. So it's not
Hmm.
that easy to crack. It requires a lot of hard work in law school, and that's
Hmm.
what the paycheck is for.
Hmm.
Yes, the paycheck is nice, but they slog you even more than that. You
Hmm.
have money in your bank
Right.
account, but you do not have time to
Hmm.
spend that. You miss
Hmm.
birthdays, families' birthdays, friends' birthdays, anniversaries. You miss many special occasions, and you
Hmm.
have to be okay about it.
Hmm. Hmm.
You have to be available 24/7 for them. So that's what
Hmm.
it comes with a good paycheck. So initially,
Hmm.
it may, you may like the idea of earning a handsome salary, but
Hmm.
depending upon your how you take it. My personal opinion right now is I am also exploring, uh,
Hmm.
a lot of the things, because this is not a lifestyle I would like, forever.
I'm
Some people
sure.
love it. Some people love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
people even at the age of 40 are, uh, but that's a personal choice, so no comments there on. But
Right, right.
yeah,
Yeah, there are certain people who are workaholics who would want to, not, I would not again say workaholics, but there are certain people who would love to have the lifestyle that, this environment is providing. But I'm sure there are certain people who cannot take that. They would want maybe more work-life balance. So I'm sure that's
uh,
your personal
mm,
choice.
but financial security wise, it is a good place to go.
Right, right, right. And one more good question that probably I have for Mr. Sai. We know that PILs and some other litigation cases takes 5 to 8 years sometimes, and the lawyer basically gets nothing much out of it. So, what is that keeps you people motivated to run behind the case for years and years? This is again by asked by a student.
That's a very interesting question
Hmm.
and a very pertinent one that what keeps us going. Number
Yeah.
one, our commitment to the client.
Hmm.
Once we have been engaged to conduct the case till the end with full responsibility, that keeps us going.
That's good. That's good. Hmm.
That is the most important thing. Second is that we owe it to the court that if we
Hmm.
have filed a matter, we are responsible to conduct the case in a manner which the court demands. So,
Hmm.
and the third thing is that, especially with PILs, because PILs are always usually filed on social issues, you don't agree to file a PIL unless you are
Hmm.
convinced with the issue.
Hmm.
So that issue gives you motivation.
Right,
I'm
right,
telling you, law is a life. You pursue law not because you have some other considerations. Of course, you do because
right.
you have various other people. I mean, you have various motivations, as Gurcaran mentioned, that people enjoy
Mm,
law firm life. Some people don't enjoy law firm life. Some people. So also, some people enjoy counsel practice. Some people do not enjoy counsel practice. Some
Right,
people have
right,
to
right.
remain in counsel practice because of their compulsions. So, but there are motivations. These are all motivations.
Exactly, exactly. And that both of you are from the private colleges, and both of you have made certain mark in your field, which is definitely commendable. So, for all of you who don't know what NLUs are like, for example, how we have IITs for engineers, how we have Ivy Leagues, how we have IIMs for MBA. Similarly, NLUs are considered to be the cream colleges for law. So as every student cannot get, like हर कोई हर engineer IIT में नहीं जा सकता. Yet they're going to private college and yet they're making a mark in the industry. So what is your take on that? If I go to NLU or if I go to private colleges, तो कहाँ फर्क आता है या नहीं? अगर आता है तो मुझे कैसे cope up करना चाहिए? So this is one, I think, very important question that needs to be addressed.
I would repeat, the key is yourself. It
Yeah.
does not make any difference. It does to a certain extent because maybe because of infrastructure, or
Mm.
maybe because there is a lot more government attention, or people are coming to top-notch competition, so
Mm.
peers. But ultimately, the key is yourself.
Right,
Because
right,
I tell
right.
you, when I joined Amity Law School, Noida, it only had four blocks: A, B, C, and D. Now,
Mm.
every 3 months, there is a new building over there.
Right.
But it did not make any difference. It say people were not there from such top-notch competition because the university has its own entrance examination, which it conducts. But you find your own set of peers
Mm.
whom you can keep yourself competitive with and
Right.
develop yourself with, and you found a lot of different opportunities which you might not have found in other law schools. So it is not about NLU versus non-NLU. There are various
Mm.
NLUs, newly opened NLUs, which are not regarded as like as National Law India University.
Right, right.
There is also a degree of distinction, but
Mm.
the key is yourself, because where you find yourself and where you conduct yourself, I think you can fare well
Makes a lot of difference.
coming
Yes,
from
yes.
either of the
Mm.
institutions. Because,
Mm.
for example, Amity Law School is placed in Delhi. Being in Delhi, we had the advantage of always attending Supreme Court lawyers, or High
Mm.
Court lawyers, or district courts of the country, which are quite superior in Delhi in terms of infrastructure, in terms of practice experience. So that is an advantage which perhaps I wouldn't have had if I had continued my education at Lucknow with respect to law.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So it is about yourself. I thought that I should do a particular internship, which perhaps gives me a kind of experience, which I would like to test whether I'm up, whether I'm good for this kind of practice
Mm.
ahead or an organization ahead. So that is how the
Right.
key is yourself, only
Makes
yourself.
makes sense. Makes total sense. And what do you think, Mr. Arora? Like, should we pursue law degree in our country, or should we pursue law degree overseas? What's your take on that?
So for law degree, I'd say that pursuing in India, if you have to practice in India, it's better you pursue in India. I have two reasons to say that. Firstly, see, law is a geographically bound thing. As in, if you study in India, you're going to study laws of India. If you're going to, let's say, go abroad, you're going to study laws of their country. Uh,
Right.
Coming back, okay, so for first reason being this one. Secondly, let's say you go abroad and you study outside there. However, if you want to come back to India,
Mm.
you have to. It's a mandate of Bar Council of India. You have to qualify certain exams in India. Then only you get the bar license in India, and you are able to practice. So for these consideration, it is advisable if you have to practice in India, you should pursue law from India itself.
Mm.
For masters, it depending upon certain objectives and certain leverages if you
Mm.
have. It's
Mm.
always good to pursue a master's from abroad and have a good exposure
Mm.
outside and develop network there and come back maybe.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. And also, I feel that when you are in a particular place, especially when you are dealing with the law of your country, there's so many nitty-gritties that you could probably miss out on when you're studying the same law course outside India. So, if you wish to especially practice in India, it's always ideal that sort of stick to at least your LLB degree in India, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we'll quickly move on to the Q&A now because we are running out of time, and I know I sort of knew that it will take this much time. So let's move on to the Q&A part. How can you get into real estate and white collar crime? Like, is there any specific course, or should I? Um, yeah, it's that's what the question is. Real estate and white collar crime.
Okay,
Is there any
I'll
specific
take that. I'll take that. So law in India is a general course.
course?
Uh, there is no special. There are some colleges that offers the honors degree per se, but law per
Yes.
se is a general course. You study all the laws, and the course is prescribed by the Bar Council of India. There could be masters depending upon the subject in certain fields, but law is general, and you have to study everything. And if you want to specialize, let's say you find your area of interest in initial of years of law school, then to towards that direction you can start reading yourself, you can network with such people in that industry, you can write papers on that, and you can do internships there. But course is a general, and that is LLB.
Makes sense. And in few cases, I've realized that LLM is also not needed. So how true is that?
I think it's again a personal choice. It's not a
Mm.
quintessential. That's what I'll begin with.
Mm.
Uh,
Right.
Even with LLB degree, you can excel as much as you can with an LLM degree. It just
Right.
adds to your knowledge. Let's say I'm doing an LLM in IPR. Of course, it'll add to my knowledge. However, doesn't
Mm.
mean the just LLB person reading about intellectual property himself would not get to know that much. So it's a personal choice, but it's not a quintessential.
Makes sense. And this next question goes to Mr. Sahay. Law being a profession wherein experienced students prevail, how do you think the young lawyers like you and us make their way in the initial days? I think a lot of people
Yeah.
have asked that question, that how do you make it to the initial days?
As I mentioned earlier, Sridhar,
Hmm.
that you must find a good mentor because initial days are kept protected by your mentor. Mentor in law is very important. And I hope I'm answering well. If I'm not, you can just come back to me. So, mentor will help you with the kind of work. Once you have that kind of work, perhaps you can develop, that nature of clientele, which perhaps, you can uh, you can specialize in, or you can work for further. Now, how can you find a good mentor is a very that's sheer luck. Apart from luck, what you can do is that you can consult your professor, you can consult your relatives, you can consult people whom you know that uh, they might know good lawyers who might you would like to meet those lawyers. You may see what is your comfort level, because comfort level is very important. And
Yeah.
another very important part which everybody should understand is that law is something, or this profession is something, where you are first required to, if you have a query, say a problem while doing something, pursuing a research, or with an issue during the course of your work, a legal issue I'm talking about, you must first go and find the answer to yourself, then discuss that answer with everybody else. Because the perspective you will get then, you won't find if you just head on go and consult people. Because then you will lose that art of analytics. which is signed to a none for all legal professionals. You must know how to analyze, you must know what to analyze, you must be able to identify the issue. In our moot courts, the mock courts which we hold, there are several competitions. In law school, we used to teach IRAC methods, issue, rule, application, conclusion. You identify the issue, then you seek the rule, then you apply that rule to the facts and conclude. Which is something like this. This is just an example of how you can analyze things. So that is the thing.
Okay, so most of the colleges are coming up with student exchange programs for law course. How that helps students?
Student exchange, yeah, they are coming up. It's always good to have, going outside your territory and getting an exposure there and getting to know people there. It's also good for networking as well. Yeah, it's just another good thing to do, but again, not a quintessential. Your law school course should suffice for you to be a good lawyer. However, if you have the resources available and the option, why not?
Right. And one question which has like goes for the both of you, like if you have to hire a lawyer, if you have to hire somebody like an intern or any professional under you, so what are few qualities that you and Mr. Arora would see in that particular person?
Enthusiasm.
Okay.
Exactly same thing. Interest. The person should have interest in working and the subject.
Right, right. How does it feel like to switch from one end to another? So before you were making efforts for C and then you've entered law field. So she's asking.
Uh, Personally for me, the only efforts I put towards both the field at that time was preparing for entrance. So for CA, I prepared for CPT. Yes, I put in a good 2-3 months for CPT, and for law, I attended a 40 days crash course with Career Launcher. So at that time, I thought it was very important to have a backup option income in case one fails. So I was prepared to choose one. It wasn't that I was planning to do both together. I was prepared to choose one. So yeah, it wasn't difficult, and with my checks and balances, I chose law over CA.
Right. Okay, and I think we should stop here. Thank you both of you for being there. Harvey, sorry, yes, read career launcher. Yes, it's beneficial. I just quickly let you know that if people should know the fact that despite 19 NLUs, are there 19 right now? I was updated 19 NLUs.
Maybe.
Would
Correct
be
me wherever
around
I'm.
would be around that number only, 15 to
Yeah.
somewhere between 15 to 20.
Right. So if you don't get through NLUs, you have really good colleges like Symbiosis, Amity IP, ILS Pune, Jindal Law School, IP University, Nirma University, Jamia, Christ, Army Institute of Law. So if you are
There's
like
Amity
willing
Law
to
School,
know,
Noida also.
Yeah,
yeah, that's
Amity.
really good. And there
Also,
are clear
just
law
to give
degrees
an
here.
insight to students, uh, not just that it's an NLU you select that. Yes, I agree. There are top 5-6 NLUs which have top 3-4 NLUs which are certainly better. But yeah, beyond that, there are many better private universities also. So
Definitely.
one should do a proper research and may
Right.
consult even alumni of those college and people in the industry before selecting. So you shouldn't just select blindly an NLU just because it's an NLU.
See,
Right.
college is a
Exactly.
medium
Yeah.
to land in the actual world. College only gives you a perspective about the actual world. It gives you a snapshot and prepares you for the entry in the actual world. That preparation is not what we would say that it is like complete or so, or that it is conclusive in itself. The preparation is starts. The real preparation starts after that, when you enter the real field and face the challenges. There, in the course of your organizations which you join, the persons whom you find, whom you have to report to, who mentor you, Those are the persons who actually, you should worry about. Law schools are only a medium and nothing more than that.
Very true.
If you go into a college like National Law School of India University, perhaps it is of course because 80 people from India landing over there. Certainly, since you have the best students, the college has to be best. Here, the difference is that you don't have that uh, population of a law school of a batch restricted to 90. It may vary, and
Hmm.
it is not as competitive as it is. You have different kinds of students, but then you still find the peers which must be related to your nature and character. And once you find those, or you take that challenge of building your law school, or finding yourself in a challenge to build yourself over there. Perhaps I don't think any law school can really harm or delay your development. You have to come out with flying colors. I assure
Right,
you.
right, right.
Have
And
confidence in
one,
yourself. That's all.
yeah, and one thing at the school level, if that's again true, having a command over the language, especially, and the reading skills, these two things I personally feel are very important for this profession.
Essential. Essential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, right. I'd really be thankful to the both of you. It was indeed an honor to have you here, and I'm sure that's what our audience have also felt. So I also would thank you on their behalf.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Bhumika. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody, for listening.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank
Take
you.
care
Thank
and
you.
all the best,
Take care.
everyone. Take care. Bye bye.